Whew. It's a long process, but we're getting there. We've created our JWT token, and now we're also able to send our JWT token to the client. But at the same time, we now have a Redis database in our container. We can now store this token into our Redis database. And this is what we're going to do in this video. We're going to store this information and set our token so that we have this session database that we can now watch over. And every time a user requests for a profile, we always check our Redis server that should contain the token. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get started. Let's go back to the create sessions function, because now the create sessions function should actually create the session and store something in the Redis database. We have our Redis client already ready to go. It's connected, so we can start using some Redis commands. If I go back to our documentation here, we see that we can just do .set with the key and the value and other commands that this client allows us to do. In our case, I want to have a new function in here. We signed the token, but now we also want to set the token in our Redis database. So I'm going to say that instead of returning this, we want to return the function set token. And this set token function is going to receive our JWT token and the ID. And as long as everything goes well and we're able to save this in the Redis database, then we're actually going to return the response. So once this token is set, there's no errors, we're going to return this object. And we might also want to do a dot catch. Oh, I need a dot here. I might also want to do a dot catch in case the set token function doesn't work. We know that we want to return a promise. So for now, just do console log so that we can debug it. Now let's create the set token function. The set token function, as we can see, receives two parameters, the token and the ID. And if we go back to our documentation and we scroll down, we see that if we want to return a promise, which is what we want to do because we're using .then and .catch, again, remember, we're saying .then, .catch, well, it actually doesn't return a promise by default. And in order to return a promise, we have to use an external library like Bluebird that actually makes things into a promise. Luckily for us, Bluebird was something that was used back in the day when promises weren't native in Node, but we actually have a way to make sure that this returns a promise. I mean, we've done it all over the code base with promise.reject. And we can simply wrap this in a promise dot, for now, just resolve. So we're just going to assume that it's going to resolve for now. And this is something that you might want to add a promise and actually create a new promise with resolve and reject. But for now, we can just say promise.resolve. We're going to return this promise.resolve, and this promise resolve is going to do the Redis client dot set. And remember, set in Redis allows us to give it some strings. I'm going to set it so that the token will be the key and the value will be the ID. And just to name it better, let's just say that this is going to be key, value, and this is going to be key and value. Actually, I don't know if this is better naming because it's less descriptive, but for now, we're setting the token with key and value and hopefully returning a promise that as long as it resolves, which it does because we're returning promise.resolve, we're going to return a success user ID token. Let's save that. And I have a bit of an error here. Oh, and I see that this syntax over here, just make sure that we're returning an object. Let's just do a return here. That's a lot better. Let's try that again. All right, that's better. We're making sure that we're returning this object. Now, let's test this out. I'm going to go back to the front end. I'm going to sign out. And now I'm going to sign in with a@a.com. And I'm going to open up the network tab. Click sign in. All right, we're signed in. If I take a look over here, we have our token that we received. That's great. Now, here's the interesting part. If I go back to my Redis server, I should be able to say get and the key, that is this JWT token that we're storing. Let's see. Hey, look at that. We're able to get 1 because remember, the ID of the A user is 1. If I enter a get key that doesn't exist, I'll get 0. We were successfully able to actually set a token and add it to the Redis database. How easy and fun was that? We now have our token within the Redis database. Now, again, some of you might be asking, are we using JWT the right way? Because JWT tokens already contain information within it. We could just verify them by running that verify method. And again, this is going back to a very hotly debated topic. People may disagree with how things work and how things might get done, but to me, even though this is a little bit longer than a cookie that we might set, it still has some flexibility in that we're able to have information that we can decode here. With greater flexibility, there is a greater responsibility. However, we now have a full control with our Redis database to do what we want. If we want to just disallow a user to sign in or ban a user, I simply just use the delete keyword. And as long as I delete this token, then I'm all set. But it also allows me to use this information, perhaps in other parts of my app, and decode this JWT token and get some information about the user. But anyway, if we go back, we've just managed to set our information in the Redis client. Very, very exciting. And if we go back to our function, everything is starting to look really, really nice. I think we need to take a break and finally finalize this part of our application. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.